Hi my frogs and welcome back to my channel. Today's episode is going to be a bit interesting because I'm going to be reading 3 one-shots in one because of the fact that all the one-shots are a part of one big old series called Midoriya is a not-so-secret badass. It is an As Class X My Hero Academia fic, and honestly, I think you guys will enjoy it if you just like any of the two. Long story short, Midoriya was in Class 3E, and naturally, shenanigans ensue. Anyway, let's get into the first one shot on this list. Aizawa Shota investigates the case of one Midoriya Izuku. This one shot has 1,435 words and, well, is a one shot. And no archive warnings apply. Summary. Aizawa Shota realizes that Midoriya is a strange kid with multiple skills that do not match up with his student's file. As his homeroom teacher, Aizawa must know what's going on, even if the answer might not be the one he thought it would be. Aizawa Shota has seen many things in his career as a hero. He has seen both the worst and the best in people. He has seen so many cocky students who had to be expelled right away to teach them about the real world. However, what he is facing right now is on an entirely different level. Midoriya Izuku. Shota looks at the name again, but he can't seem to grasp the words on the file. He is not one to look at the students' files, especially when he doesn't know them all. He prefers to make an idea about the kids not based on words from incompetent previous middle school teachers, but this kid, something is tickling, annoying his basic underground hero instincts. Crawling in his yellow sleeping bag towards the open door of the classroom, the kid had reacted immediately to his presence. His situational awareness was amazing. In all the years he had done this trick, none of his students had been as quick as he was. That was his first hint. Exceptional situational awareness. During the quirk apprehension test, Midoriya scored in the top 5 without using any quirk. He was fit and agile. He was also brilliant in using the best in his peers and encouraging them to be creative with their quirks. But that's the Bakugo boy that triggered Shota's attentiveness back to the boy's quirk by screaming profanities at the green-haired boy. Deku and quirkless were shouted before he wrapped the boy in his capture weapon. Huh? You're quirkless? Really? Uraraka had said. This created an uproar among the class. Midoriya had shrugged, while scratching the back of his neck, answering simply, I am, but quirks are only tools to make one's life better. If you can't even care about knowing your quirk or improving any other important skills, what's the point of having one? Shota was impressed. Having such confidence in a world where quirks were everything for anyone, and calling his peers out about their lack of knowledge on their quirk was a feat in itself. The boy had balls for sure, but he would not admit it out loud. He showed the students the results, and Midoriya was good for someone with no clear advantages. All the students had fared well in at least one test thanks to their quirks. Midoriya was good in all the tests without one. That was the second clue. Overall good athletic shape. The teen was too good, if you were to ask him. Not remembering the kid from the school entrance exam, Shota decided to consult his student's file to realize he had entered the school on special recommendations from the government. That was his third clue. Government, huh? That was unusual. There was no other peculiar information about the kid except that he was from the prestigious middle school, Kunugigaoka, a school known for its high academic performance. His grades were a reflection of the school's reputation, high grades in all subject matters. There was no information on the kid, no previous teachers' comments from his third year, just results and some behavioral issues from his first year at middle school at Aldera. The next day, Shota had no qualms about barging into the principal's office and demanding answers. If something was going on with the kid, it would be the rat's fault. It was always the rat's fault, no matter what. Shota knew from experience that Nezu was a fan of puzzles and enigmas. Midoriya Izuku was one just fine. He smelled like a potential problem child. Tell me what's going on with Midoriya Izuku. Black, round orbs looked at him straight in the eyes, not disturbed at all by the interruption of his precious tea time. What would be the fun of it, Aizawa-kun? I thought you knew better than to try and get answers out of me. As he replied, a smirk on his face. Midoriya is no simple teenage boy. He's quirkless, but he had some form of training from the government. If you can find out why before the end of the week, I'll buy you a personal coffee maker and provide the supplies to go with it for a whole year, stated the rat gleefully. That was never a good sign when the principal was in a good mood. He has too much time on his hands, decided Shota. Better that than planning world domination. He guessed he could entertain the rat for some time. Shota had to get to know his students anyway. And if I don't find out by the end of the week, we'll have private lessons and observations. Double. Huh. Yep, Midoriya would become, without a doubt, a problem child. Trademark. It was only the second day of the school year. Shota just knew that this year would be a long one. He better have the answer, otherwise he can say bye-bye to his precious nap time if he were to have private lessons with the rat. The last sentence sounded like something Mike would say. He shivered. Spending more time with cats and less time with Mike was added to his to-do list. It was the middle of the week, and Shota had compiled some more clues about the teenager, but still could not make a connection between all of them. He had a license to carry weapons on him, many weapons, guns, knives, and so much more that a normal teenager should not even have any knowledge of, but the kid had them. However, Shota noticed that on his hero costume, Midoriya only carried knives. The costume was also very strange. All of his students had flamboyant costumes, but his was sober and practical. He had black boots, a gray uniform, and a hood to conceal his face. For someone without a quirk, the path of heroism was a dangerous one, but going underground was the logical choice for the boy, and the costume was a reflection of his thought process. The students were fighting one-on-one to try their hero costumes out and ask for changes if needed. Midoriya was the student with the most experience with hand-to-hand combat. Even Ojiro, who had martial arts classes before, had a hard time winning a match against the green-haired boy. But it was against Bakugo that Midoriya's skills were the most noticeable. "You're just a stupid nerd! I'll kill you, Deku!" the blonde shouted, prepared to fight. Midoriya's whole demeanor changed. It screamed bloodthirst. Students gathered close by, could feel it, and stepped back from the fighting circle. The explosive teen seemed shaken, but took it as a challenge. The fight started, and Bakugo punched a right hook. Midoriya easily grabbed onto the blonde's arm and flipped him, knocking the air out of him. "You always start with the right hook, Bakugo. You're too predictable." He was taunting the wild beast. Bakugo quickly got up and used his quirk to propel himself toward Midoriya at a fast pace. He saw through it and stepped to the side and kicked the blonde in the ribs. Both teens danced around each other, but Midoriya was at a clear advantage with his cool head. The green-haired boy was at ease in parrying all the attacks. Shota had a flashback right there, looking at Midoriya in his distinct movements. He saw an old classmate who had pursued a career in the military instead of following the obvious hero path. Karasuma Tadaomi. It clicked. Kunugigaoka, the supervillain who had threatened to destroy the Earth. The only hope being in the hands of middle schoolers, Karasuma being among government officers that were part of the project, the secret assassination classroom. Shocked, Bakugo didn't see the knife the other team was holding to his throat. Would you even be able to kill Bakugo? Would you be able to look at someone in the eyes and be the one to murder them cold-hearted? Asked Midoriya, putting more pressure on the skin. Because if you were able to do that, how can you consider yourself a hero? Midoriya removed his knife, and Shota realized it was a fake one. He sighed, finally releasing the air that he had been holding. You would not be a hero then, but an assassin. Better watch your words if you don't mean them. Midoriya left the circle, and the class was dumbfounded. Yep, problem child, all right. At least Shota would have his coffee machine and his coffee provided for the whole year. He would need it if this was only the first week. He was in for the long run. Okay, so that was the first part. We're moving on to the second one-shot, Midoriya and the N class. Now, this one has 1,630 words, and once again, a one-shot, and no archive warnings apply. but I would say trigger warning real quick for a suicide attempt, bullying, and panic attacks. If you do not feel okay with it, please, for the love of whatever's out there, either skip this part or click off the video. I want you guys to be safe. Izuku changes school after years of bullying. Finally get him. Summary. Izuku changes school after years of bullying finally get to him. Entering Kunugigaoka, Izuku soon realizes that 3E is not just the delinquent classroom, it's the end class. What a befitting name for all the school's losers. Quirkless, he would just blend in with the crowd, or so he thought. Notes. Trigger warning! Again, I'm stating this again, and for your guys' own safety. Trigger warning for suicidal attempts, bullying, and a panic attack. Seriously, if you do not feel comfortable, for the love of fanfiction, AO3, and whatever else is there, click off and find another podfic. I do not want you guys to be triggered by listening to my stuff. Please, click off if you feel uncomfortable. Izuku had attempted an assassination on his life. It was before the final exams of his second year middle school. The many years of being bullied by his classmates and teachers and anyone who knew his quirkless status, Izuku was done with everything, especially his whole life. Go take a swan dive off the roof and hope for a quirk in your next life, were the words that his best friend Baku, a classmate, had said to him. He had followed the advice and just jumped. For a moment it had been freeing, not caring about anything or anyone. The roof was not too high, and the bushes were dense enough to save him from the fall. Izuku had only sprained a wrist, and some bruises were on his face and arms. He was sent home promptly after a quick checkup at the hospital. He was taking out a precarious spot for someone with more potential, someone with a quirk. He was taking a precious spot for someone with more potential. Someone with a quirk was implied. Used to this kind of treatment, Izuku could only shrug it off. But guilt quickly set in. He thought of his mom, his sweet mom who always prepared katsudon whenever he felt down. His mom, who was always in his corner, was patching him up after being roughed up by some classmates. His mom who tried her best every damn day to be the mom he needed her to be. Izuku confessed everything to her, as he couldn't hide it anymore, feeling so vulnerable, so raw physically and emotionally. Inko Midoriya was a sweet woman, but a fierce mother. She went to the school the next day and promptly unenrolled him from Aldera. Inko took the phone to call her best friend, Mitsuki, and screamed for long minutes that Izuku preferred to hide in his room, even if the paper walls could not cut the conversation entirely. Well, that was an interesting chat, she said as she put the phone down, a little bit flustered. It was the first time Izuku had seen his mom so out of control of her emotions. Always happy, he knew was the reason she was so unhappy. The remorse was so strong and that his throat squeezed the air out of it. Breathe. He couldn't breathe. Hey, breathe in and out. Izuku took a deep breath. He coughed, but now he didn't feel so constricted in his skin. Your father's connection, who's a principal in a middle school, owes him a favor, said his mom. You'll change schools for the upcoming year. That's how Izuku got into Kunugigaoka, the most prestigious school in Tokyo. They had moved out of their apartment after the paperwork for Kunugigaoka had been approved. The change had been quick and efficient. The first week of class was a blur of new faces, and Izuku got to know the neighborhood and faced a few deceptions. Meeting with the principal had been a weird one. Your grades are good, but that is public school level. Here in Kunugigaoka, you must devote your time to your studies to strive to be the best. Only the strong achieve their goals, explained the man. Will you be up to the challenge of never giving up, even when the odds are against you? Izuku didn't know what to say. He simply nodded while his mom was bowing deeply, glad that her son would be in a good school. Did that man mean the fact that he was so far behind in his studies, or was he referring to his quirkless status? Was the man quirkist? Izuku soon realized that Kunugigaoka had a hidden in plain sight system to motivate the students to perform well academically, and that was known as a 3E class system, or end class. That's exactly where Izuku had been placed. The principal must have owed his dad, but not in a have to go against the school's system ideals. The meeting between his mom and Principal Asano had been courteous, but it was clear that he had a say in his enrollment. Izuku wouldn't have been considered. He could see people didn't want him there. Izuku could trust his gut feelings when they flared the way they did. Speaking with the man was one of those times his gut feeling made itself known. For now, he would avoid Principal Asano at any cost. He was boss level 1000. Izuku was getting to know his classmates. They had been downgraded in the class either because of previous bad behaviors, breaking rules, or bad grades. They were a gaggle of misfits. For once, Izuku felt like he belonged. Nobody had asked about his quirk. There was a rule among 3E members. You don't talk about quirks. His fingers were often twitching to write about potential theories about obvious quirks in the classmates, but he did not give in to his old habits. He bit his lips a lot more in the 2 weeks he had spent in class to refrain from mumbling. Then the moon exploded. The teacher went missing, and Class 3E was put in charge of killing a giant moon destroyer octopus that was planning to destroy the Earth next. Killing someone. That was what led to him being in Kunugigaoka in the first place. He jumped and tried to kill himself. If he couldn't even succeed with his assassination, how was he supposed to murder a Mach 20 speed octopus monster? You should add that he likes sweets, Izuku said to Nagisa, looking at his notepad. He eats way too many to be normal. You think it could be a potential flaw? Asks Sugino. You think it could be a potential flaw? Asks Sugino, who was close by listening. It might not be something, but what is it? It might not be something, but what is his fuel? Could sugar help him stay fast? Is it a part of his quirk? Continued the green-haired boy. Those are good suggestions. I'll add them to my notes, promptly said Nagisa. Maybe we could give him some, but add poison in it. Izuku felt good to be listened to. The conversation might have been weird taken out of context, but it was fun to share his thoughts out loud. That afternoon, Nagisa almost succeeded in his assassination with the Tarasaka gang. The monster had been livid at the students' carelessness towards their own lives, but applauded their creativity. After a few days, Kora-sensei, that's what they had named him, announced to the students that they must use their quirks to kill him. Otherwise, their attempts would not count as an assassination. One must use all the skills to best thrive. Quirks are tools available to you, exclaimed the teacher. You have to use it to kill me. That's true. You must use everything to your advantage. The octopus is not restraining himself because you're middle schoolers. Kurasama-sensei had been adamant that students use their quirks for a higher chance of killing Kora-sensei. Let's use this PE period to talk about your quirks and make plans on how to use them to their fullest potential. Izuku sighed. That was the end of the status quo. He would have to tell his quirk, or lack of, to his classmates, who would shun him. That was just going to be Aldera all over again, and he was going to do That was just going to be Aldera all over again, and he could do nothing. So far, all the others had been so kind to him. It had been a long time since someone, other than his mom, had enjoyed his company. Izuku listened to his classmates and thought their quirks were amazing. Now that they were talking about it freely, he would find a notebook to write down all of his ideas. I'm a strong empath. I can feel people's emotions, said Nagisa as it was his turn to tell the class. It can be used for an assassination to know if the target knows something is up or not. I can't turn it off, so sorry if I make comments sometimes. Izuku frowned. That didn't explain the low presence of the blue-haired boy around him. Could he hide himself, knowing that people were not focused on him? How did he differentiate one emotion from another? Izuku was lost in his thoughts when his name was called. He stood up. He had never considered himself a courageous person, but Izuku thought that for once in his life, he would face what was unavoidable. He would be with these people for the rest of the year, their last if the earth blew up at the end of the school year. I'm quirkless. I have no tools at my disposal. He sat down. The cat was out of the bag. Tarasaka snorted loudly. The others started to murmur around him. It was painfully uncomfortable to be at the center of the attention, knowing the attention was not a good one. You might not have a quirk, but you have good observational skills. You're the one who came up with my many ideas to kill Koro-sensei by using small weaknesses that you saw. He looked at Nagisa, who was smiling softly. Yeah, you helped me with my assassination by giving me pointers, added Sugino, even if it didn't work. He was scratching his head, remembering his failure. You might not have a quirk, but you can perfect your other skills and become a competent assassin. Quirks are tools. The more you practice your tools, the better you're at using them properly. Only that, firmly stated Karasuma, hands on his hips. He might have been speaking to Izuku, but the whole class understood the message. They had a lot of work coming before them. They would have to work together to kill their teacher. They weren't the 3E class, the class of misfits. They were the ones who would save the Earth, and Izuku would help, without a quirk. Okay, so that was Midoriya and the N class. Now it's time for our third and final part for today. Strange is his middle name. This one shot has 1,850 words and no trigger warning, so yeah. Class 1A are. Wait, no. Summary. Class 1A are no fools. They know that Midoriya is a genuine guy who really wants to help everyone. But some situations are simply hard to explain, even for Midoriya. A series of certain events that made Class 1A doubt their classmate. Now let's get into it. Class 1A were no fools. They had known from the first day that Midoriya Izuku was strange. Not just strange, strangely good at a lot of random things. Things that normal teens were not used to. During Aizawa's test, Midoriya had been among the top 5 best, even without displaying an obvious quirk. He had asked everyone about their quirk and provided good tips on how to improve. He also helped a few achieve good scores. Asking Uraraka to touch the baseball before throwing was strange but smart. Even using Yaoyorozu's scooter for the running test was definitely not something other students had thought of. Clearly, he was amazing. Clearly, he was analyzing everything and everyone. Some, Ida, had thought that using others was considered cheating, but was quickly rebutted by Aizawa-sensei, who had praised the green-haired boy for thinking outside the box and using tools to his advantage. Rumors of Midoriya having an intelligence quirk were whispered among the class, but were soon shut down by the explosive blonde. Deku's quirkless, you bunch of losers! He had screamed at the top of his lungs. The mysterious smile Midoriya gave back freaked out a couple students close by. Even Bakugo had no reply, not recognizing the green bean. Huh? You're quirkless? Really? Uraraka exclaimed. This created an uproar amongst the students. Midoriya had shrugged while scratching the back of his neck, answering simply, I am, but quirks are only tools to make one's life better, even if you can't care about knowing your quirk or improving other important skills. What's the point of having one? After hearing his comments throughout the whole quirk test, many students had used his useful advice and improved their scores. Midoriya had simply brought new ideas on how to use their quirks so effortlessly, and others felt dumb for not having thought about it. Midoriya was terrifyingly smart and had crazy observational skills. Another instance that proved Class 1A of Midoriya's strangeness was the villain attack at the USJ. During the whole ordeal, Midoriya hadn't been fazed at all by the villains. It was unusual. During the whole ordeal, Midoriya hadn't been fazed at all by the villains. It was a usual Tuesday for him, while other students were starting to panic at the idea of real villains invading their school. Midoriya took control of the upper floor as Aizawa-sensei was taking care of the low-life villains at the center plaza. The green-haired boy had pulled a mask over his mouth and took his phone out of his pocket. The screen stayed black even when he tried to power it on. He looked at Kaminari. Are you getting any signal? He asked the blonde. No, something is interfering. I can't get a thing, he replied, frantically hitting his headphones. Another quirk was blocking all the communications. Ritsu will probably see my phone's gone from her radar, but we can't wait for her to do something about it, murmured Midoriya, looking at the empty screen of his phone. Ida, who was close to the teen, looked at him curiously. Who was Ritsu? We need to get out ASAP, not to bother Eraserhead and 13 while they fight the villains, Midoriya exclaimed to the other students, who were still frozen in place. He had quickly pushed Ida towards the door. "Let's get out!" shouted 13, following Midoriya's lead. Everyone moved towards the doors. "Ida-kun, you'll be the first one exiting." I can't do that and leave the other students inside. I'm the president. I must leave last." He tried to argue the engine boy. "It's my responsibility to make sure everyone is safe." "You're the logical option, Ida-kun," firmly said Midoriya, grabbing the boy's arm. Ida had wanted to protest, but was shut down by the green-haired teen. You're fast and you'll be able to explain to the teachers the situation calmly. I'll take care of everyone in your stead. Now go before or someone." He didn't finish his sentence when a misty portal appeared in front of them. Seeing that some students were going to intervene, Bakugo was too predictable. He whispered in Ida's ear to wait for a signal. As previously thought, Bakugo and Kirishima jumped at the villain without knowing the consequences, but it gave Ida an opening to escape through the door. Now the group only needed to defend themselves and wait for help to come. After the mistake of letting out a student, the portal man dispatched the other students across the USJ's different zones. Mineta had freaked out, and Midoriya had bitch-slapped him to regain his composure. Those were Suyu's observations, who had witnessed the scene on the boat. After slapping the great boy, Midoriya came up with a plan to escape. They even captured a couple of low-life villains in Mineta's balls. "The villains don't know about our quirks, which is an advantage for us. Otherwise, they would have sent Asui." "Call me Sue, Ribbit." "Otherwise, they would have sent Sue to the conflagration zone, where everything is on fire," said Midoriya. Fire would be a weak point for you, a frog-type quirk." "You're right about that, Mido-chan. Too cold or too hot temperatures are a weakness for me." "Then let's use Mineta's balls and my bomb to create a diversion and get out of here." Asui and Mineta looked at the green-haired teen weirdly at the mention of the word bomb. Midoriya took a couple of random pieces from his various pockets, Mary Poppins style, and assembled them in a precise order. A small red and ominous light appeared on the side, which made the two step back. The boat shook as the villains attacked them. "Sue, do you think you can jump from here and have both of us on the shore?" asked Midoriya, unfazed by the villains coming closer to them. I could probably do that, Ribbit." "Perfect. Here's the plan." Both listened to the natural leader and executed the plan. Sue took the two boys in her arms and tongue and jumped as far as she could. Mineta threw sticky balls in the water while crying, which made the villains confused and wary. It was just enough time for Midoriya to throw a small bomb in the water and create a maelstrom of balls and villains and other random stuff to stick together. Right after they had been able to save their teacher from the Nomu by blinding the leader with chemical bombs he had on him, to this day the other students weren't sure where the bombs had come from, but they were grateful that the green-haired teen had them on him. At the Central Plaza, everything was going crazy with this Nomu thing. It was too fast and too strong for them. However, with a quick plan, Midoriya put a small taser inside the Nomu's brain. "I wonder what that'll do," muttered the teen while climbing down the massive monster. "Nomu! Kill him!" had ordered the handsy leader, but the Nomu ran towards the water instead and tried to grab something invisible. The taser had the effect of mixing the commands. Interesting. Some brain cells might not be connecting properly now. Midoriya looked at the Nomu in perplexity, not expecting this reaction. Behind his back, he made a hand move to catch two other teens' attention. He pointed to their sensei, still on the floor, trying to tell them to get out of the Central Plaza. That done, he turned towards the villain. "Can you ask this thing to do something else? Is it supposed to listen to you only? It seems fast but also robust. What's its quirk?" Midoriya wanted to have the entire villain's focus on him while his classmates were rescuing their teacher. "You're not an NPC. You're an OP," said the multi-hands guy, clearly beefed at losing sight of his element of surprise. His unhinged smile scared Hasui and Mineta, who were still looking at the scene. "You'll have to be better than that to go to the final level." A few seconds after, many pro heroes came in, cutting their discussion. Ada had been able to call up faster than Midoriya thought. Unfortunately, the main villains escaped through the misty portal after Snipe Sensei shot a couple shots at them. Many students across the USJ had shown through this whole ordeal and fought bravely against the numerous villains, but no one had been as prepared for the kind of situation as Midoriya, which was weird in itself. It made the other students wonder how a fellow first year classmate could stay so calm while facing real life villains for the first time. Midoriya had been way too calm in front of the villains and had even poked fun at them. He was strangely too level headed about this. Once all the students were grouped, police officers came in the scene to take their testimonies. A tall, brown haired man appeared on the scene with the aura of authority. Other officers were showing respect as he advanced towards the students. "Good day, Detective Naomasa," smiled Midoriya at the detective. It was not reciprocated as the detective shook his head and sighed. "Midoriya, I should have known. I can't say it's a pleasure to meet you in these conditions," replied Naomasa. "Are you here to take our testimonies?" "I have some." Midoriya hesitated and then looked the man in the eye. "Observations. Perhaps you can say your observations sometime later during your deposition." "I'll sure do that when my guardian gets here." He sighed, looking proud of himself. The detective could only sigh at the comment. Suspiciously strange, that was. During exercises, Midoriya strategized many successful plans, but also ones that had been less collateral damage than any other student. He was amazingly terrifying. Better be happy he's on the hero side. He would make a damn good supervillain if he wanted to, commented Aizawa-sensei one day out of the blue. The students were watching the feats of the exercises going on the screen and shuddered at this mental image. Gosh, this thought was frightening. After heroic classes, he often disappeared to who knows where. The class after, he would always come up with new tools or ideas on how to defeat crazy opponents and be successful. After meeting this crazy girl, Hatsume, from the support department, it was no wonder that Midoriya came back full of crazy tools. Or was she the one he talked to? Tools were obviously pre-approved by the school before being used in class. Midoriya was just so weird. But the class had come not to question him too. But the class had come not to question him too much for the fear of learning more. Sometimes ignorance is bliss, right? Troublemaker, weird, smartass. Those would all be good middle names if the boy had one, but strange was better. Strangely good, strangely calm, strangely cheerful, strangely quirkless. Yep, Midoriya Izuku was unmistakably strange. So that was Strange as his middle name, and the final one-shot we're doing today. Next time I'm going to be podficking the last two, and please go leave comments or kudos on the original work, which I will have linked in the description. I'll actually have all three one-shots linked separately and labeled, but yeah. Bye, my frogs!